And we are live. Welcome, guys. Happy Friday. I hope you are all doing amazing. Welcome to Crystal Coaching Connections, a place where we basically discuss health, wellness, and everything in between. The goal of the show is to bring together wellness as an integrative practice while we fully explore our well-being. Like a spoke of a wheel, there are multiple facets, and they all align to create oneness. If you guys don't know me, I am Crystal Baran. I'm an integrative health and wellness coach who specializes in helping men and women navigate and overcome stress and burnout, to reclaim their natural confidence and learn how to stress less. Essentially, I'm your guide to help you to realignment of sorts. So today we have my friend Josephine, who is a yoga teacher, and she's also the founder and owner of Yoga Essentiel. She's a sort of a 500-hour yoga certified teacher. I met Josephine actually, thank you to Julian, who told me that you would be the perfect person to get on here for yoga. But I met you about 4 years ago when you were at Hakini Yoga and you were teaching over there. So I wanted to talk to you today about how you ended up inspiring me in the yoga practice, but how yoga can really be incorporated into our wellness journey. So welcome, Josephine.
Thanks, Crystal. Thanks for having me.
Hold on, I'm just fixing this to make sure that we can see everything that we've got, if we've got any comments on Facebook as they come. So Josephine, tell me a little bit about yourself. What brought you into the world of yoga?
Well, yoga came to my life when I was 19, and it kind of showed up.
19.
That was 2009. I was in my first year of university, and I was struggling a lot with anxiety. I was a super stressed student and super achievement oriented and driven.
Perfectionist, right?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. And then I found myself, I was a student. I was over caffeinated. I was not eating well. I was, not sleeping well, and I found myself, lacking a place where I was able to just recharge. Even, it was just nonstop. And I had always been, used to having some form of practice. As I was telling you,
I think you did karate.
Yeah, I did martial arts for a big portion of my childhood and all the way into my mid-teens. And so I think that, for a very long time, I always had a place of practice. So I was when I was 5 and up until I was about 14, I always had this kind of place where I went to, and and that practice taught me so much. I mean, focus.
Create a solid foundation for you, part of
solid foundation, and I'm tremendously grateful for that, and to my parents for putting me into that. Our whole family kind of did that, and it wasn't just like Wednesday night karate practice. I mean, my father did martial arts when he was younger, and so we had practice at home, my siblings and I, and so we had this kind of there was a bit of this ritual in my life where I had a place to go to where there was a little more focus and a little more discipline, and that brought that into my life. And then when I was about 14, I got injured in combat. I fractured my neck, and I stopped practicing. I was in a brace for 6 months, and
wow.
And I think that that was the beginning of the end of my kind of practice, which makes me sad a little bit. But I was also, an adolescent, and I was kind of less interested in practice, and it was only really at 19, when I was facing all of these difficulties of the pressures of school and of life, and what am I going to do, and work, and managing all that, and I realized that I didn't have that place anymore, that place of practice, that that time where I spent with myself, and So I thought about going back, and I kind of was a little bit more curious about yoga. I kind of thought maybe that might be a bit better to help me with my anxieties and stuff.
Especially
So
from a stress management perspective. I'll just, on a side note, the first integrative doc that I ever saw, and I wanted to kill him. I was so angry at him. I remember being in his office and I was crying and I was burnt out. It was my first burnout. I didn't know it was a burnout, but it was my first burnout when I was about 25 years old. And he just looked at me. He's like, I'm not giving you anything and I'm not giving you time off. He goes, you're going to go to yoga.
yeah, I mean, that's a good doctor.
It's a great, now guys, now like just taking it out of context, now I know that this doctor had it all together. He knew exactly what was wrong with me and what I needed, but back then it was really hard to understand. But I'm so glad that, like, I found that part too, because similar to you, the stress, the anxiety, not knowing how to bring down that mental
Just
level that
losing
we're
touch,
living at.
right? Losing touch with yourself too. It's like you're constantly in a sense
Overstimulated.
performing, right? I mean, meeting deadlines, and before you know it, it's the midterms, and then it's the finals, and then you have your part-time job because you're paying for school, and it's stressful. And I think that a lot of students, I mean, they experience these anxieties and these stresses, and luckily there are ways to manage that. I'm very grateful to have have found yoga at that time, and I took up a class like once a week in this community center near home, and I am so grateful for those classes. I mean, it was a wonderful teacher, and that's another thing. It's like if you're lucky, you really fall into the hands of a really gifted and good teacher. And these classes were slower. They were not fast. They were not exercise oriented. She was coming from an Iyengar background. She's now a certified Iyengar teacher, so she always had this kind of alignment oriented method of teaching that brought me back to this practice of focusing, right, and of just observing. And then when you come, everything shows up on your mat.
I really love, I'm just going to stop you right there because I love what you just said about how the practice is slow. And yes, it is exercise, but it's not about the exercise portion. Like it is, the physical activity is super important, but I've been to a lot of good and bad yoga studios, yoga studios where it's like, okay, let's go. One like downward dog, this, that, like, and you're moving so fast and there's no explanation and there's no, I don't know. I feel like there's lack of internalizing the
Right.
movement.
Yes, yeah, I'm sure there is a lot of that. I mean, I've flirted with that a lot too later on, that kind of vinyasa, more also just physical oriented practice, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just maybe less interesting depending on what you're looking to get out of your practice. But I guess I found myself finally, like you said, like it's so important to, yes, you can be in an active pose, right? You can be in an active pose and you can be moving through poses, but there's a lot of reflection that the pose brings to you. Even if you're just focusing on, your physical body, there are moments when you really arrive in a part of your practice. It could be a pose where you see yourself, right? Things show up. Your patience, the irritability, that will to do more, to be better. Those things will show up, and so you recognize patterns and you recognize things that surface. And I think that that's important. I think that's what helped, because what I cultivated in my practice, that ability to reflect or just to notice, what showed up. I was able to, recognize those things in my life as well. And at the time as a student, when I was pushing myself too hard, or when I was, expecting more of myself, or a lot of that stuff, And so the practice, the yoga essentially is just a tremendous teacher. And
And what made you decide that you wanted to go this route? I mean, obviously you had a very pivotal moment when you were 19 and you were stressed out at school, but you went through going to learn about yoga yourself. But what brought you into this as a full-time practice? Like how did it become your calling? Let's just say.
Um, well, not long after, I think it was a year in that I was practicing regularly. It was like my, you know, my thing, my ritual, my place. And I think I knew right away that that yoga would be with me all of my life. I recognized that really early on, and I knew I wanted to share yoga. I knew I wanted to teach it. I had already been, I had found myself, I think a year or two later, I had found myself finally in a school that was a teacher training school, but a school that where I recognized those teachings, where I was able to take my time in my practice, and I was able to um, come back to myself in my practice. I wasn't just moving because, like I told you, I was flirting a little bit with different kinds of practices throughout that year or two. And when I found myself in the school, and this was a school of yoga studies, I was in my last year of university at this point, and I was, conflicted with whether I would continue on to my
Pursue it.
practice or, maybe decide to study yoga. And so during my last year of university, I did the teacher training. I started to study, and I knew right away. I started teaching during the training. I was driven to teach. I wanted to be able to, offer these teachings
Yeah.
from an integrated point of view as well, right?
Yeah.
I knew that
One of
it.
the things that I remembered about your classes, I loved how you always brought it back to the individual. And I think that that's really one of the things that I appreciate most about yoga, especially yoga that's coming from a place of really understanding the fundamentals of yoga, not just the
Mhm,
yoga for the exercise, but really understanding the foundation of yoga, that every person is at their own place. And it's
mhm,
important to be at that spot and not, it helps to, especially for somebody who's stressed. Like I used to be way more stressed. I'm not anymore. And like you said for yourself, right? You were stressed, you were anxious, but coming to the mat at your own place in
mhm,
your own journey. What I loved about the way that you taught is that you made everybody feel like they were extremely comfortable in whatever position they ended up being. So if you were that beginner that has never been to a yoga class, or if you were somebody who is more experienced, everybody felt like they belonged.
mhm. I'm glad.
Yeah,
Great.
definitely.
Um, Um, I think that when you show up on your mat, it's important to know what it is that you need from your practice. That's important is to recognize what you need.
Yeah.
I mean, take today for example. I mean, I'm teaching classes, a lot more restorative practice because I think that, you know, I think that given the circumstances, I mean, people are in great need of a supported practice, of a slower practice, of a reflective practice too, right? And so knowing what you need and not just doing to do, right? You're not just performing a pose. What do what happens when you're in that pose? Like there's a reflective process and there's a teaching. There's always a teaching.
Yeah.
So learning to listen and observe, that's what yoga allows us. So, gives us.
I'm actually emotional right now because I remember you must remember, but I had my burnout like during the time that I was going
Yeah,
to
I remember.
Hakini, that I'd met you and Julian. And you know having had yoga as a practice made me realize that I was not in a good place because I wasn't able to be on my mat. I was so at a point where I wasn't able to be there for
Mhm.
myself that even going to yoga classes was difficult for me. But had I not had that, and had I not had the understanding that the connection there, I don't think that I would have been able to like make those next steps and really take the rest of my health into my hands, right? I was already at the maximum capacity.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm getting emotional thinking about it because, that's what I teach now. I teach people how to learn how to live more in the moment and bring down those cortisol levels, to stop living in the high stress adrenaline lifestyle. And so you talking about these restorative practices that are so needed right now, like I can't even tell you how much it means to me to hear that from somebody like yourself, because it's so needed in this world right now.
It's tremendously healing. I mean, a big part of my teaching is restorative yoga as well. I mean, I'm very grateful to have studied with amazing teachers like Judith Lazater, and also my teacher, Francois. He brought a lot to my practice when it came to, taking time in Shavasana, for example, right? And or any
Oh, I hated Shavasana at the beginning.
Right, there are difficult poses to be in if you're coming.
If you don't know how to like go internal, and a lot of people don't. I didn't. I still have, I'm studying yoga too right now, and I'm doing my yoga teacher training, and I still find it, a struggle sometimes to get into that. It's like a muscle. Your mind is like a muscle. You have to work it.
Yeah, letting go. It changes you too, right? I mean, letting go. There's a reflective process, but it also, it changes also the way you make decisions, right? It changes your reactivity, you're less reactive, maybe making space for, more compassion, more kindness. Just like slowing down is important. I think that it's a rich practice. I mean, even in the active asana, I think we learn a lot. I think we learn a lot about being in tune and present, and
being kind to yourself as well.
Right.
That's
being
really
kind to
important.
yourself ultimately starts there for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I have a question for you. Yeah. What would you suggest? So somebody who's never looked at yoga before, what would you suggest would be one of their first steps to, maybe starting to integrate a yoga practice into their day-to-day lives?
Coming from, well, in my perspective, I think the alignment based yoga is really a good place to start, just because I think it's important, to be able to to tune in, with attention to certain, for example, if we're practicing asana, to integrate it and to understand it and understand, I guess, your body would be the first thing, right? Your body will show you things and teach you things, and it will teach you focus. And I think that it's hard to kind of jumping into these practices that are very advanced or very quick, and we don't have this understanding of well, why are we here?
Yeah, like what is this asana? An asana is a pose. So for those of you who don't know what the word asana means, it's possible they don't know, but asana is a pose. And so,
the asana will teach you, the asana brings space, right? We bring space into the body when we practice asana, and they teach us tremendously about ourselves. And I think that the alignment oriented practices are really helpful because they give a sense of attention. There's a bit of, that attention to alignment, that precision, that focus, like, comes when you're trying to understand, your knee over your ankle, and
so very much beginner classes is very important to start.
I think to understand what is this pose, and how am I going to come into this pose in a safe way, and then when I'm there, what happens? I mean, why am I in this pose? What is what is it doing for me? It's making space. How does that affect the way I'm breathing in the pose, and how does that affect the way energy moves through my body in the pose, and how does that affect my mental process as well, right? My focus and my attention, how that shifts, right? And so there are meditative moments in asana, right? And in the very beginning, in the beginning asana, I mean, when you're learning how to stretch your hamstrings, that it's sensational, but how to be in something active and inactive simultaneously. We learned this in asana. So I think that a beginner's practice has to start with
Really the
a fair amount
foundation.
of it, yeah, foundation and a fair amount of understanding of I think the alignment based teachings are really, really helpful for that, because you take your time to kind of um, bring your body into these positions that tremendously, do something on the inside. I mean,
Yeah.
just to be aware and attentive and be able to receive it, and sometimes that takes time. Sometimes we're just doing to do.
Yeah.
The more you practice, you realize, okay, like this is, um, there's an offering here. There's a
Yeah.
teaching, you know.
Yeah, and so I love that because it doesn't matter really where you start, it's how you end up progressing through it. And so, like you just said, starting as a beginner, like you're going into the poses, you're trying to do the poses, and then slowly but surely, as you move through your practice, you realize and you have that open understanding. And especially if you have teachers like you, I'm pretty sure that your school has teachers that are representative also of you and your practices, right? Do you guys have yoga classes that are for beginners that are geared towards like, hi, I'm brand new, I've never done this before?
Yeah, I'm actually the only teacher,
Okay.
and we do offer of course. I mean, a lot of my classes are either going to cater to multi levels, or beginner students are always welcome. And I think that no matter what, if it's a multi level class, I think that we are able to manage a room of people, because I think that what I'm grateful for is that my teachers have always taught a yoga that's adaptable, right?
Yes.
We work with props, and we have there's a lot of adaptability, and so catering and learning how to see bodies and catering to different needs. And sometimes the student doesn't recognize their needs, but the teacher may. So assisting people to, for one, recognize it in themselves, but also um, you know kind of leading them into what ultimately they're going to benefit from. So
Amazing.
yeah.
How has it been going with Zoom? Because obviously Zoom it's changed the way that we do things. I mean, I know for a fact when I'm teaching or I'm coaching, it's a very different, a different scenario, let's just say, right? So you have to be able to watch differently, teach differently. You're not in the classroom setting where you can actually do physical, realignments.
I
Um,
know. I miss the classroom.
of course.
I, I miss the classroom a lot. I miss the students, and but I am so happy to see the students show up online. And what I think I appreciate a lot about the Zoom classes is that the students seem to have cultivated more of a personal practice, right?
Mm,
And coming back to ritual, like some people finally made a space in their home for practice that they come to. So some, I think maybe for some people, when the schools were open, it was their Tuesday morning, Thursday morning class,
we would
but
go there instead of having that
I didn't,
thing for
yeah,
them.
a lot of students have reached out and said that they found themselves going to their mat more often now that it's like they have this space at home that they dedicate to practice. And I'm just grateful that they're still practicing and I'm still teaching. And it's a different way of teaching, but Zoom made it possible to see
Yeah.
your students. And so you see the best that you can. And you know and you learn to use cues and verbalize in a way that helps guide the students in a safe way. So it's a teaching. It's
Yeah.
like a different way almost of teaching, but we're learning. I think I think it's going pretty well, actually. And
Good.
it's cool. I've reconnected with students that have moved away, and
Yeah, they're able to come to your classes now that they're far away, and
yeah,
that would have never been possible without Zoom. Or
exactly.
without, it's crazy. The pandemic has changed so much. There's a lot of things that we lost, but I feel like in the long run, we've gained so much more, whether it's knowledge, whether it's perspective. I know, working from home has changed my perspective a lot. I've gained so many hours in the day to be able to dedicate them to very different things. Whereas before, it was stuck in your car driving for an hour.
Yeah, time, right? The notion of time
The
is,
notion of time has definitely changed. I think you have something exciting that's coming up. You have a couple of things for your studio. You have a couple of programs, and you have some. So I'll give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about what you got going on.
Yeah, thank you. So our school, Institut Yoga Essentiel, offering their first teacher training. So that is going to begin in October of 2021, so next fall. And we have a really amazing faculty of teachers that are, bringing together these really super interesting modules, that are going to touch up on many aspects of
Yeah, I
yoga.
was looking, the amount of experience that you have on that dashboard over there of
Really
teachers
good
that are going to be
teachers. I'm
teaching.
very excited to have them, on board, and I'm excited. I'm excited to, take that new step also in my teaching career. I've always, I've taught in a school, teacher training school for a lot, several years,
Mhm.
and I've always really loved teaching teachers. When I had the opportunity to do that to students that were studying yoga or that were teachers themselves, it's fun to share the teachings with people that are eager to teach, but also, I think that the program ultimately is just like an amazing opportunity for students to, take, study yoga more deeply. I mean, take a dive into yoga studies, and commit to that.
I actually know a lot of people that have been doing the yoga teacher training, not yogurt, yoga teacher training. And they're not doing it because they want to actually teach. They're doing it because of the fundamentals and the foundations that
Yeah,
the actual practice is able to be cultivated. So we talk a lot about, having that space and having that understanding of the foundations and how you learn what breath does to your body.
absolutely.
Um,
I think, you learn a lot in these classes with your teachers, to a certain extent, but then, um, you know, we have, the students either begin to make space in their life for really develop what we hope. I think what I hope is that we provide these tools to our students so that they develop a
mm,
personal practice, so that yoga, is with them. It's not just the class that they attend to with me or their teachers. And so for sure, these teacher training programs they're super rich, and there's a lot of self-study in there. It's a lot of self-exploration. So um, it's interesting work. I think that the teacher trainings are more than anything, self-development programs that take you into the understanding of yoga as a whole, and understanding of yourself as a whole, right? Because ultimately that's what you're going to face.
yeah, you face yourself every day. Exactly. And I
Yeah.
think you also have another program that's coming up, the chair yoga.
Oh, yes, yes. I'm in love with the yoga chair. And you know what I love about these Zoom classes, is that students finally bought props.
Yeah, because actually before I started my yoga teacher training, I would go to classes just like everybody else, right? So the
Yeah,
props would be at the school already. I
that's
wouldn't need
right.
my
And so
blocks. I didn't need a
I've
strap.
been like, telling my students for years, like, "Oh, well, what are you doing at home without a bolster? I mean, how do you not have a bolster yet?
Yep.
You need a bolster in your life, you know." So the students are investing in their practice, which is good, and so that makes it more feasible for them to have a home practice, which is, I think, another positive, right? Another positive thing of all this. So the yoga chair workshop is basically a 4 series program, and we're going to look at different postural groups and how to integrate the yoga chair um, into our practice as a way to kind of support our practice,
Yep.
in asana that may come challenging to us, but also teach the body alignment, because the body will face will face its difficulties sometimes when using props, and you can really recognize where it is that you may feel misaligned or out of balance, or so the props are incredible tools, and the chair is a really cool tool to help you deepen and enhance your practice or support your practice. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun in that one. And
Yay. I'm going to ask you that after we've gotten off of this, I want you to go in the comments and I want you to post both those links, one to the teacher training and also for the chair training, because I want to make sure that I get on the chair training. I just have to make sure that it works with my schedule. I don't want to I want to do the full four,
yeah,
four
they're going
classes.
to be great. I mean, you don't have to do the whole thing, but I mean,
Yeah.
you know, you can't love one group of poses more than the other.
No, I know. And I'm kind of, I know I shouldn't say this. I'm an all or nothing kind of girl. Like I really like doing a full program.
Yeah.
I like to start somewhere and end.
For sure. For sure. I had a student recently ask me, Josephine, should I do the back bending one because I really love back bends, or should I do the forward bends because they're really difficult for me? And I was like, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting, to explore the one. I think the chair will assist you in the poses that you're having difficulty with. So definitely that.
Yeah.
But it's for sure it's integrated. So the whole series is going to be really interesting.
This was amazing. And I'm glad, it's crazy. You brought a lot of emotion to me in having this conversation today, because I really went back to that day. I swear it was, I don't think it was in your class, but I remember having the conversation with you about that week. But I think it was in Genevieve's class. That was the last class. And I remember everything changed for me that day. And although I couldn't do the practice, I spent the whole practice crying.
Sometimes that's exactly what had to happen. I mean,
but my body was telling me that I needed to stop. I needed to stop proving something. I needed to stop being perfect. I needed to stop being the best at everything that I was doing. And I just needed to stop. And had I not had that opportunity through yoga throughout the years to learn about what my body is, I might not have made that connection to that inner work that you do when you are doing yoga. So I'm glad that we were able to bring this out today, because I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to look back and they're like, oh my God, like I don't stop. I don't, I suffer from stress. I suffer with anxiety. We don't have a personal practice. There's nothing that's our own. So if we can give just a little bit of hope.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to believe that we can live in a world that has no stress and no difficulties and no suffering.
And it's how we manage it, right? At the end of the day, it's all how we manage it. And that's how I love to incorporate yoga into my practice of learning how to manage those stress, having those tools. So yoga essentially is a tool in your wellness journey, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Josephine, this was amazing. Thank you so much for coming on my show.
My pleasure.
I look forward to seeing those comments later, because I'm sure people are going to be very interested in it. Thank you everybody for watching today. There was a lot of people we didn't have any comments, but we had a lot of people popping on today. So this will be available for replay on Facebook, but I will also be posting it on YouTube. So y'all have an access to rewatch the whole video, take what you like, and reach out to Josephine or myself if you have any questions. And I hope you guys have a happy Friday and have a beautiful weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
You too.